So this is a sand point well, or a driven well, drive point, sand point. They come in PVC, they come in stainless steel. Depends on your situation. Supposedly the PVC points have less surface area than stainless steel, so in this case I doubled up. These are 1 1/4 inch. They're 3 foot long, and they're down about 8 feet, and probably about 4 foot of water-bearing sand before you hit the clay layer at the very bottom. So they're probably submerged. I think I estimated they're submerged about 11 inches right now above the top of the screen. So I have 11 inches of cone of depression. If I pull 15 gallons out of there real quick, you know, it's going to drop down. And as long as you're not getting above your top of your slits, you're not going to be drawing air. And so far that hasn't been a problem. And normally the water level is higher than it is now. It's quite low. For the last year, it just seems to have been dropping. But if it gets really too low and you keep sucking air, you can always cut these down. You can cut these PVC sand points down and then just move your coupling down. So you can end up with a 2 foot sand point instead of a 3 foot. And you could add a 3rd or a 4th point down there to make sure you've got enough surface area to draw what you need. In this case, this thing will fill 15 gallons in just a few minutes into my pressure tanks. It's a huge improvement over the old stainless steel one that I pulled out of that hole. Not to say there's anything wrong with the stainless steel point that was in it, just that it was old and probably clogged, and but there's nothing wrong with the stainless steel point itself. It was screwed onto a galvanized 1 1/4 inch pipe that was corroded and looked pretty nasty. So I definitely prefer the PVC, and in this case you're really not hammering these wells down into the ground. You can use water pressure, stick a hose on a stick and just put it right next to the pipe. When you turn on that hose, it floods the area. You can just push this thing right to the clay layer and then turn off the hose, and it grabs onto it with an iron grip, and it's, you know, secure. Hammer it down a couple inches into the clay, and you can hammer on these things. I pound them with mallets and 2x4s, and these glue joints have no problem with that. So in this case I used Gorilla Glue 1-step PVC solvent, and as you can see, it doesn't have any purple tint to it, so it could give the impression that it wasn't done properly. But believe me, on a suction side, you got to have a perfect airtight seal. If you're sucking even the tiniest bit of air, you're going to have tons of air getting into your system all the time. Every time you flush the toilet or turn on the sink, you're going to get a big bang and a bunch of racket, and the wife would not appreciate that. So you got to have these things super airtight. The Gorilla PVC glue did a great job. You can get one that has purple tint in it to put someone's concerns at rest. When they see something like this, they could say, "Oh, it wasn't done right. They didn't use cleaner." But this is a 1-step PVC glue. It's got fantastic reviews on Amazon, and this is a good test. The fact that I put this on a suction side and I hammered the shit out of it when I was experimenting, and with no problems. To get a perfect airtight seal on your threads, I like to use. You want to use thick Teflon on a 1 1/4 inch fitting like this. I use 4 wraps of thick Teflon, which can be the blue stuff, the pink stuff, or the yellow stuff. It's 3 to 4 mil. And then I also put a layer of thread compound over the top of that. Screw it on super tight, and because in this case I'm using a male PVC and a female brass, I was not worried about doing any damage, so I went right ahead and tightened it up as much as I want with no worries about breaking anything. And you probably don't need to go super tight, but you really don't want to have to keep cutting this thing apart and doing it over again, so I go pretty tight. And same thing here, you got a 1 1/4 inch male with a 1 1/4 inch female. You got a 1 inch female with a 1 inch 3/4 inch bushing in there. And I did the same thing. I wrapped it with Teflon, and then I put a layer of thread compound to make sure it was super tight. You got a T, 3/4 inch female, a 3/4 inch to a 1 1/4 inch adapter. You can take that out of there so you can prime the pump. This is an 18 inch 3/4 inch shark bite hose. These things are great if you need a little bit of flexibility. In this particular case, I probably didn't need the flexibility because the pump and the tank are mated together. It's kind of screwed in right underneath here so that the pump pressurizes that tank, and then once it's pressurized and you call for water, it'll come out the outlet. Not something I'm not super big fan of that. It simplifies your system, but it also takes away some of your control. But I was not going to complain. This is a Craigslist deal on a 2013 Gould's pump with tank, great condition, $200. You can't beat that, so I wasn't going to complain. But yeah, the hose works great. I put them on, taken them off 100 times. They have never given me a problem, never given me a leak. They're $10 to $15 if you got a good supply house. Very convenient. Boiler drain, that's a quarter turn ball valve. It's always nice to have the ability to hook up a hose. You can use this to drain, but you can also use this to jump over from another pump. If you want to mate a couple of them together, you can jump over with a good quality hose and pressurize one side or the other. You can use these ball valves to isolate that section if you need to work on it. Very convenient to have. Well, you got a good supply house, you can get these ball valves quite cheap. I've seen them as cheap as $2.50 for a half-inch ball valve and $3.50 for a 3/4 inch ball valve. I think I paid like $5 for these 3/4 inch quarter-turn ball valves. So I spared no. They're so cheap. I figured I put them everywhere. Makes life a lot simpler.